Ramotar, thank you very much for allowing me to have this interview with you for Let's Talk with Lakshmee.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
So my first question to you, sir, is when you were initially nominated for the presidential seat, what were your feelings?
Well, it's hard to describe really, but I probably feel humbled by the by the fact that my comrades, my colleagues, my contemporaries, people I work with in the party, that they have bestowed on me the honor to be the candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic. And I also felt that I have to do my best for what they have done to give me the nomination for the presidency.
Now that you are the president of Guyana, what is that like?
I have been very, very busy over this period of time, trying to grasp it. There are so many things to deal with on a daily basis. But I have been trying to deal with them all, but at the same time with a focus on what I think are probably the most important issues to push our country forward so that we can grow economically stronger in the coming period ahead of us. So I have been trying to deal with both the small things and the big things with a greater focus.
Definitely have a big job ahead of you.
Thank you.
How did you get into politics?
Well, I grew up in a family, and my father had a very strong political conviction. He had been a strong PPP person, and that obviously had an impact on me. And when my father used to subscribe to newspapers, but we didn't used to get them on a daily basis. I was born in a little village in the Essequibo River, a place they call Carrier. So once a week he will come to Wakenham where he will collect his mails, including a newspaper.
So you had to go from one island?
Not an island, I come from the Main, not to the island, but we went to an island for supplies.
Okay.
And we will get the Mirror newspaper. Dr. Jagan had a column called Straight Talk. And I used to read his Straight Talk. And he was a fantastic communicator, thinking about it, because he wrote in very simple language, so even a young boy of 13 could have understood what he was writing. And he wrote extensively on every single subject of his day, every matter that affected him, both nationally and internationally. I didn't realize it then, but now a lot of people have been asking me similar questions. And when I think about it now, on reflection, I think those articles had a profound impact on the development of my own political consciousness.
Now, back then, as a young child, 13, reading these columns, did you ever think that one day you would become the president of Guyana?
I never imagined that would happen. In my whole life, I think I probably moved from moment to moment. That as a young boy, I was at the Carrier, I was very much affected with what was going on in our country, and followed it, as I told you, read the Mirror and Dr. Jagan's article, other newspapers my father got to, and we listened to the radio. In our home, the radio was on from the time we got up in the morning until we went to sleep in the night. There were 2 radio stations where we got, so I was always listening to news. My father was listening to news a lot, so I look forward to hearing what was taking place and so. And then I came to Georgetown at an early age. First I came to Georgetown to go to school. My father had some friends, and I used to attend the St. Andrew's School, Church of Scotland School, and that school is immediately opposite the Parliament building. And there, the Parliament building at that time was the focus of a lot of political struggles at that time. And many of the riots and so forth that started in the 60s began there. So I had a front view of what was taking place in our country. I witnessed several things, including the period of time in the opening of the 1961 Parliament, when Fox Burnham sat in front of the governor's car. I saw those things with my own eyes. So in that period of time, I think our whole country was heavily politicized, and you couldn't avoid the politics of the time. And probably going to school at St. Andrews helped also to form my political consciousness. Dr. Jagan's office was in the Parliament building, so I used to see him, get glimpses of him, sometimes coming down. Sometimes I'd be standing in the schoolyard when this car would pass going home. He was living in the Red House at that time. And then sometimes as kids we went in playing in the Parliament built compound, and we had an opportunity to chit-chat with him a little bit. So probably all of those things, on reflection, probably all of those things helped form my political personality.
Now, reflecting back when you were a child, going to school, right in front of the Parliament building, reading the articles, listening to the news, who was your icon back then? Did you have one?
Not particularly, but I would say I had developed already a loved one for reading. I used to read a lot.
Okay.
And I remember the pocket piece my father would give us whenever he would visit Georgetown. Mine was invested more in these small little, I think they call ladybird books. I was recently at my brother's house and he had some of them. And I remember one of which I bought, William the Conqueror. So I would have, I don't know exactly which one would have, I could call an item, but I got fascinated with history and with personalities in history at a fairly young age while I was still at school, primary school that is.
Could you ever imagine that years later that you would be making history as the president of Guyana?
No, it never crossed my mind.
Now, you mentioned your brother. Tell me a little bit about your family life.
Oh, I come from a large family. We were 11 of us. 9 of us are alive. 2 died at very young age. There were 6 boys and 3 girls in the family. We live fairly close to each other. We have a very close relationship. Even now, in adulthood, we still are very close to each other. I suspect the fact that we were being born 1 and 2 years apart made us not only siblings but friends in many, many ways. So that's probably why we still have a very close relationship with each other.
And mom and dad, what positions did they hold?
No, well, my father was born in High Flat on the west coast of Demerara. That's where he grew up, and that's where he had his first. He worked at it. He began his working life at the estate like so many others. But his brother had become a fairly successful businessman at that early period of time. And he had opened a timber operation in the Karakara area, Arawari Creek. And he took my father to go and work with him. Maybe he wanted someone close to him to look over some of his operations. So my father went to Karakara ready to work with his brother in the timber grant operation. And there he met my mother, who was a native of Karakara. She must have been a very, very good-looking woman, I would say, because my father spent the next 40 years of his life in Karakara, and I am one of the product, as I said, of their 11 children.
Well, I'm sure mom is gorgeous. You're a very handsome and sharp president that you are. So tell me about your life now. Are you married, children?
Yeah, I've been married for a long time.
So you take after dad. So your wife also must be very beautiful.
I've been married. I have 3 kids. They're all grown up, all adults. 2 boys and a girl. The girl being the eldest of the 3.
So, Mr. President, we've seen a lot of new investment in the mining, agriculture, and the tourism sectors. However, what is the plan to create jobs in urban centers in Guyana, such as in Georgetown and in New Amsterdam?
Well, we're doing quite a bit in that regard with business and so forth, giving some tax concessions and so forth for new industries and things like that. However, one of the impediments to creating a lot of jobs in the coastline is energy, cheap energy. That's a big problem. And we don't have cheap energy in Guyana. That's one of the biggest bill that we have is the importation of fuel to generate electricity. That is why hydroelectricity is very important for us. And we're working very, very hard to have established a hydroelectricity power station, hopefully in the next 4 or 5 years that we can have that. And that will have a big impact on our development in the country because it will encourage much more manufacturing and it will encourage a lot more processing. And our agriculture can very well become raw materials for a new agro-industry within the society. So the most important infrastructure, in my view, to develop jobs on the coastline is to develop cheap energy. And that is what one of the focus that I have been having since I have become president. Before I became president, this was a project that was started by President Jandio, and I think it is very, very crucial. It has transformational effects, and I'm going to pursue it to ensure that we get hydropower here in 4 or 5 years' time.
And it would develop more jobs.
Of course, that is, to me, that is the main infrastructure that needs to be developed to generate big jobs within our society right now. But we have, the job situation here has been improving because, you know, our massive social program, particularly our house lots, where we have distributed more than 100,000 house lots since we came to government. And people are building their own homes, and that is employing quite a lot of people in the coastal and urban areas. Generally, people are having sustained jobs within the society. So I don't think it is as the unemployment situation is not that bad in our country at this point in time.
Dr. Mukund Thakur cared for the elderly in rural villages of India. His lifelong work caring for the elderly continues. The doctor realized that our Indian elders needed a place they can call home. A nursing home for our elders. Born out of this vision is an Indian nursing home in New York. In an Indian surrounding, our Indian elderly is among their own. They wake up to prayers in the temple. Indian food is served. Festivals are celebrated. Our elders are cared for by Indian nurses, serving our Indian community from Guyana, Trinidad, India, and more.
I'm not inviting you as you can admit your loved one in my nursing home, but whenever really you need me, please call me, and I promise you, I take care of like my own parents.